She began her career at Goldman Sachs in treasury operations before moving to the New Orleans area, where she worked in commercial banking. Sophie then established and grew the treasury function at Lucid, which, as we all know, sold to Cent Technology in 2021. She was most recently head of finance at Rep Data, a data and market research technology. And today, Sophie is an associate director at Amper on the financial management and disbursements team, where she helps clients implement, scale, and run their treasury accounts payable function. And as you know, she is going to be talking to us about automation. So, Sophie?
Thank you so much. Is the mic working? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today. My name is Sophie Martinez, and I'm going to be talking today about automating accounts receivable and accounts payable in order to modernize the business. So I'm going to go over automation. What is it? I'm going to talk about why it's a benefit, why you should be thinking about it if you're not already, and then where to start. What solution should you be looking at, how to select the right tool. And then following my presentation, we have Dylan Rush here from Stute, who's going to do a quick demonstration about an accounts receivable automation product that leverages AI. So thank you, Dylan, for joining us. So a quick background about me. My name is Sophie Martinez. I'm an FEG member. I've been an FEG member for probably about 2.5 years, and I transitioned to Amper about a year ago. And I run a team that runs outsource treasury and payable solutions for our clients, as well as implement automation systems. And my email's at the bottom. I'm an FEG member, so feel free to reach out to me after this if you have more questions or you don't know where to start. I love having these types of conversations, especially with fellow FEG members. So please reach out to me. So what is automation? It's transitioning from manual processes to modern efficiency with technology. It'll save you time, money, and then also decrease errors and potentially reduce fraud as well. I know that's been a topic that we've talked about already today, and it will come up again. So what is AP automation? It's essentially going from importing, paper files, scanning them, maybe keying them into a computer, to modern efficiency. And you have touchless bill processing, so bills come in through an inbox and show up in your AP automation solution. AI, machine learning, partially enters those bills, and then you might have a human review it before it moves to the approval process, or you might have it automatically matched with a PO. But it removes the need for someone to enter that data and potentially take all those paper files and scan them in, although you can still scan in bills. One of the really fantastic pieces is the approval workflow, and that's not only a benefit to your team, but it's a benefit to the others that you work with in your organization. So you might have somebody out in the field, they receive an approval request for a bill. So traditionally your team's probably sent them an email, "Hi Dan, we're following up with you for the second time, please review the attached bill, reply back with your approval." Well, now instead of Dan receiving this email from your team, which takes time from your team to send this multiple times, capture Dan's approval, PDF it, save it with the files, Dan's receiving an email, he can, within his phone or tablet, approve that bill once he reviews it, and then that automatically marks it as approved, and it moves on to the next approval in the queue. And Dan might be someone who's out in the field, he's not necessarily back at his computer at the end of the day, or if he is, the last thing he wants to do is review bill approval. So this really helps speed up that approval process, which helps your team and then those approving the invoices on the team. And then you have a bill payment integration. So these systems will integrate with your bank and your accounting and ERP system. So when you go to pay something, it pulls the money directly out of your bank, or can pull out funds potentially with the automation provider, depending on how you have it set up, and marks the bill as paid, and the money comes out of your account and it's marked paid seamlessly, so reducing the reconciliation. And then additionally, there are a lot of solutions that provide credit card and employee expense reimbursement automation, and that's a place that I recommend a lot of people start. It's lower lift, it's often lower cost, and some of those solutions are the same solution. It's an add-on. Some of them are standalone themselves. But if you're looking for a place to begin automating, I suggest you start to look into some of those solutions. And if you're not sure where to start, need some recommendations, I'm happy to answer any questions offline about that. So AR automation, similar but a little bit different. You're automatically generating invoices to meet all of your specified customer needs, reduces the time required by your employees. Invoice processing, payment processing is touchless. you don't have your team having to key in credit card information or potentially taking care of auto draft information. A lot of that can be stored within these platforms, and customers are initiating payment themselves via link or straight from the invoice. And then there's seamless cash application. When something is paid, it's automatically applied to the bill. Credit memos are taken into account, so your team's not receiving funds into the bank account saying, what is this for? We don't even know how to apply this. And some of these solutions, which I know Dylan will touch on this, they use AI to look through your company's files, emails, and be able to sometimes reconcile these more difficult to reconcile items or unique type of situations and applications. And then there's a streamlined collections process. Collections, automated collection emails have been around for a long time, but some of the newer generation softwares can tailor these messages specifically to your client. It can reply to emails to your client, so your client feels like they're receiving information from you, but in reality, they're receiving information from your technology, and then if it needs to be escalated to an individual, it can be. So we've talked about a lot of the benefits already, but just to highlight some of them, your team's not going to be dealing with paper files anymore. If any of you that still have those, I recommend you move away from that. You don't have to take care of those or worry about not being able to access them in the event of a pandemic or a natural disaster. You have a comprehensive audit trail with improved controls, so you can set up roles specifically for individuals within your organization so they can only do a specific item. This person can only see bills from this department. We only want one person that's able to enter bills, and then a totally different person approves them. Whoever updates vendor payment information cannot enter bills. That's a big one. And these systems really allow you to customize it to tailor to your business needs and depending on how many employees that you have. The streamlined approvals, we touched base on that already. Really, I think that's a huge one in terms of efficiency for your team and the others within your group. And you can set up automatic approval reminders. Hey, it's been 48 hours since this approval reminder was sent out. You can set up a reminder to automatically go out. And again, a lot of this is customizable to your business needs. One of the great things about the AR automation softwares is you will see a reduction in your day sales outstanding. So improvements in cash flow, which we touched base already on today. And then improved customer and vendor relationships. A lot of the systems have portals that your customers and vendors can log into. And some of them may choose not to log into them, but if they want to, it's a great way to keep your customers and vendors appraised of what's going on with their account. They can pay bills, they can view bill status, all within that system. And then a lot of the systems have bells and whistles such as compliance tracking. So end of the year, time to send out 1099s. You already have your vendor set up as 1099 applicable. You can easily pull a report to determine who needs to be 1099 eligible. And again, these systems are they only spit out as good data as you put in, so maintaining these is an additional time, use of time from your team, but at the end of the day, you can ultimately reap the benefits with improved reporting. So this is a slide I think will resonate with almost everyone in this room. Your role is evolving. You're not closing the books, moving on to the next month, closing the books again, handling the audit, and moving on to the next month. A survey from the Aberdeen Group says that now modern CFOs, we're seen as enterprise value creators, and also we identify as finance and accounting stewards. And I'm sure a lot of you feel that way now. You come to the table and you're expected to be a thought leader in your area and provide actionable insights to your company based on data that you're reviewing and your team's collecting and you're analyzing. In order for you to be able to do that, you need team members that can support you with bigger initiatives and projects and support you in that. And in order to get there, you need to automate. So this slide shows you the impact, and it's an average again. Every company is different, but the same survey from the Aberdeen Group shows the impact of implementing AP automation on bill processing times and also the cost of processing an invoice. And you can see that both drop dramatically with automation. Similar information, but on the AR side, you can see the reduction in day sales outstanding with each implementation of automation that you put in, whether it's sending out an invoice via an automation, automating payment acceptance, or even further automation, it will decrease, such as what Dylan will talk to you about today, collections automation and things of that nature. One thing that a lot of people are worried about with automation is, well, what am I going to do with my current staff? I have staff members that have been with me for 10, 15 years. They know a lot about my company. They're part of the culture. We can't get rid of their jobs. I can't use automation to replace them. But in reality, what people are finding is that you're able to increase your workload without having to hire new employees, which we all know is a struggle. I think that's one of the main topics at every FEG meeting that I go to. And then you're not having to backfill people that leave. Additionally, your employees are now available to perform higher level work to get you where you need to be that finance and accounting steward. So how to select the right tool. A lot of people come to me and they say, I don't even know where to start, Sophie. There's so many options online. I Googled AP automation. There are 15 different things that come up. There's some reviews. I can't tell how legitimate they are. Where should I start? What do you recommend? And this is a great checklist. I've presented this before to some people in this room, in fact, but this has been the most popular slide. But you really need to figure out what does your company need, because every company's needs are different. Are you going to be moving to an improved ERP system in the next few years? Well, then you need a system that's going to work with your current system and the one that you migrate to. Do you use POs? Well, then you need a system that works well with POs. And you need to say, hey, I want to see how that system works in action. I want to see this in a demo with a technical person on the line. You need to make sure it integrates with your existing ERP. If you hear, well, it doesn't integrate out of the box, but we can use a third-party software, or maybe you can work with a coder, we can create a fix that's going to work. That's an immediate red flag. You need to make sure you have something that integrates seamlessly with your current application, or it's going to cause more headaches and costs for you. And in terms of cost, you need to understand what your budget is. These systems vary wildly in pricing, and they have lots of different bells and whistles. If you need something more simple, it's better to understand that so you can tailor your needs based on cost and pricing. A lot of them are charged per transaction, per seat, per month. Understand what the pricing model is as well. Some of them will say, well, you can add unlimited approvers. Great, tons of people in my organization can be able to approve bills on the go. Awesome, I don't have to pay for them. But a finance user might be an additional cost per seat. So just understand what your needs are, because the cost does vary based on that. Understand how payments are processed. Are you charged by payment? How fast do they take the cash out of your account? If it's an AP automation solution, some of them take the cash directly out of your account to pay the bill, but then they often hold onto that cash for a few days. A lot of these AP automation software companies do make money on float, so just know that when you're looking at them. And some of them have an account, your account, and their system, and you send money there, you wire money there, and then from that account you can make payments out. So these are just different nuances that you need to think about and understand and ask questions about when you're going through and evaluating these projects. And then understand the implementation timeline and cost. What does implementation look like? And I always say, compare 2 different vendors, to do at least 2 different demos, because the first one might be great, and then you do another one, and you realize, okay, the first one was great, but this second one is better. They all vary. So I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Are there any questions? There's about a minute left for questions. If there are any. I'll be here for the rest of the day if anyone has questions or wants to discuss this further. I'm going to hand it over to Dylan, who's going to do a quick demo of Student.
Oh, can you hear me here? This is working? Grand. Thanks for having me. First, I work with a company called Stu. None of you know it. We're very new. We started about a year ago. The technology we're using didn't exist 15 months ago, so it's been a really interesting space. Actually, prior to this, we started a company in the AP space that we had scaled. We were really eager to jump onto the AR side for the main reason that most of you in this room care more about cash coming in than cash going out typically, but the technology never really existed to do anything different. I'm sure most of you are using some type of automation from an AR standpoint that hasn't been new. It's generally been painful. It's a lot of work. These business cases look fantastic on PowerPoint. They're very difficult to deploy. You risk annoying your customers as well with bad automation, so it's always been a bit of a trepidation space. You've probably heard a ton about these AI agents coming in. There's a lot of different use cases. I think that the slide earlier about your role changing, I think the biggest way you'll see that in your org charts will change. In the next 12, 18 months, you'll all have a layer of AI agents managing 40 to 60% of work that people hate doing, or people just don't do. So very much, I think to that point earlier, we're not going to see a huge replacement of people, but you're going to see a big replacement of work that either takes too long to get done, or people just hate doing it. We see it with these collection calls. Calling someone for money is not a fantastic phone call, particularly if you don't have the relationship. So there's some really interesting use cases And I can kind of go through a quick example here of how this actually works. I would say that probably the biggest difference or change that we've seen with these models, and again, it's not just specific for us, but with all these agents, it typically takes 4 or 5 days to get these things live. They're not fantastic. Think of this as hiring an intern that you bring into your business. You give it a set of work, directions, you give it a very short leash to begin, and gradually you start to improve this. So I think the reason we're seeing a lot of success with this type of deployment is because you've all done this before. We're mimicking hiring humans to do work. AI agents don't have the same capacity constraints as humans, but you just have to be very cautious as to what you grant permission to do and what you don't do. So what we're seeing, some of the tasks, particularly on the AR side, these systems are great at following up with customers, very easy. Sophie mentioned email responses. All of our customers, they get thousands of inbound emails each day asking for invoice copies, asking for W-9s, very repetitive type of work that you can now automate within 2 minutes, and the customer gets an email back from the person they've always communicated with. They don't know the difference, they're getting just a much faster experience. We're also seeing things like research. AP billing contacts with your customers are always changing. It's a high turnover role. You're going to add 2-3 weeks to your cycle if you're emailing the wrong person. AI, we're always doing a bit of research to find who the new VP of Finance is or the CFO within that account. So it's these individual use cases that have been quite interesting. So specific with Stu and how this operates, so we layer on top of your ERP and we embed within your email, so your Outlook, Gmail, whatever you're using. And ultimately you coach the agent on how to operate. So most teams will have some type of direction as to who our customers are, who we want, how often we want to reach out for past due notices. This type of aspect. You have emails that you typically, this is how we communicate with our customers. So generally with this, the change management with your customers is minimal. They get the same messages from the same email addresses they always had. It's the speed that really changes. And how this deploys is these agents operate. They start managing a huge amount of work on the collection side and the cash application side using AI to communicate, to mirror all these areas. And then they pull information back and they have a supervisor. So your AR clerks now are managing these AI agents, and they're typically managing a taskbar like this where there's some work. So there'll be a common example would be customer emails say, hey, can we have a copy of the invoice? I'm sure most of your teams, it's not. Oh, grand. Close your eyes and imagine. That was a cracking demo, so, huh? Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. So this type of aspect, so these inbound emails coming in, there's a huge portion of these that don't need a human sitting there or waiting 5, 6, 7 hours to get back to your customer. It's this type of work that you can start to manage. I think the really interesting use case, which truthfully scares people quite a bit, is the ability for these to actually make phone calls. Using voice AI, we can reach out to customers. Typically, there's quite a bit of control as to which customers you might call. It can be a push far. We're seeing this be really effective where these models can have a full conversation, answer questions, take notes, and then follow back up with the customer. Both for outbound and inbound. Calling is a very effective collection strategy, but it's a very low yield. Most people don't answer their phones. Fantastic task to put off to these types of models. And it's been really interesting. So some of the customers that have leaned into this, there's a few of the big ones, so the Pepsis, the Honeywells, the Medtronics, but the vast majority of our customers are private equity backed mid-market type companies like Bishop Lifting in Houston. They had a team of 4 collectors managing 20,000 invoices a year. They did about $7.5 million in over 60 days past due, and they reduced that down by 80%. Just didn't have the capacity to reach out. So it's these really interesting use cases where you can start to deploy in small areas, but deploy really quickly. I think your software contracts are all going to change. So you'll be able to hire these agents, and you'll be able to fire the agents and replace it with new ones. So there will be a shift away from these 3-year contracts or forcing them into long-term commitments. I think on that matrix as well, that would be another red flag if they're getting forced into these very long-term agreements. All of this type of capability will become extremely commoditized. It already has, generally. So it's become really interesting areas that you can deploy quickly, test, either see the impact and scale, or you don't see the impact and you shift. So hopefully some ideas here as to what's going on. But I'll pause for any questions. Very quick overview, but hopefully gave you an idea. Yeah?
As we rely on technology like this, AI and so forth, I know myself, we're on a software as a service, cloud-based subscription. Where are we with our infrastructure, keeping up with demands on access? I mean, the underlying infrastructure to be an agent, a voice agent, make those answers. Is it how is it on-prem or is it in the cloud? We're hitting it with the internet every time.
Yeah. So I suppose we're the vendors managing that aspect in terms of the relationship with these LLMs, the OpenAIs, the Anthropic companies you may have heard of. I think the big piece there, these can be deployed on-prem, but you very much limit your data set. So there's a security win there, but you minimize the impact. Because these models are changing every week. Like even the last 2 weeks, the translation capabilities of these things have become phenomenal. Translations were always terrible. Maybe Spanish would go well. Now we're seeing Arabic, French, Brazilian Portuguese and Peru. So I think that's the aspect where push towards the cloud, but these vendors are sitting on top of that and they're managing much of the work.
So you've seen your customers need to upgrade their communications backbone to handle this?
No, because it's not on your infrastructure. Ultimately, this is feeding or sitting on top of your ERP aspect. Now, if you wanted to privately host your own cloud, which you could, but you'd be overcomplicating, I'd say, for the most part. Hope we answered your question there. Anyone else? Yeah.
So how does it work? Like, it's just automatically looking into the AR to just dial up?
Yeah, it just.
Repeat your question, I'm sorry.
Sorry. In terms of like how does this work? How does it know? So ultimately, it embeds within your ERP. So the same way that you direct your AR teams today, so this is the subset of invoices we want you to manage. It reads off of that. Now, I think the really interesting thing with this, and if you've all used ChatGPT, if you start to get with these types of systems, you can prompt it with information. You give it, like, here's the database I want you to work off of. That's been the interesting part. So I'm sure most of you have, or often will have manuals of this is how we operate. The manuals that no human ever reads. I've never read them. And these models are phenomenal at reading them. They'll just pull off that. So you start to see a bit of accuracy. You can create this knowledge pool of how you want your employees to operate, and ultimately just feeds off your ERP. So it's the same. You have these people operating like this today. These models mimic that exact work. Again, in certain areas. It's still early on in the technology. It's never going to replace a human interaction. Ideally, you free up more time for that, but it's been really interesting to see.
Because I used to call people, to get collection, and a lot of times I'm sitting there and can you just record my voice and then send it to people?
It's not a nice song though.
But then sometimes, because one of the clients likes me so much, she's wired $15 million in 30 days instead of 45 days. So it's kind of hard to justify the AR versus the human interaction.
Yeah, and there'll be a subset of your customers that you should never be AI focused. Your top tier customers, they really annoy people. But we tend to see that long tail. There's a subset of your tier 2 or tier 3 customers where you can take a bit of risk. Generally, the paradox I think we see is that the vast majority of time and effort is spent on that long tail of invoices, but the majority of your DSO sits in 20% of your customers up top. So it is shifting your people towards that aspect and being able to automate it. I think the big change, though, is the same business case that you've probably all seen with AR automation. The success rate is just a lot higher. It's a lot easier to deploy, and the failure rates are much lower just because of the intelligence base these things are sitting on top of. So, yeah, an area that you'll probably see quite a bit more of. Yeah.
What does the voice sound like? So when someone calls, can you tell that it's a...
Well, this is the cool piece. So this is very configurable. So this is where I think we see teams have a lot of fun, where we can dictate.
Hi, I'm Joe. Got something on your plate?
Hello, I'm Julia. What's on your mind that you want to talk about?
So you can pick your agent, you can say how fast they speak. We have a law firm as a customer, and they've pushed it, so they actually trained their own voice model off of their senior partner. So they're fully deep faking their customers with it. We don't recommend that, but we give them the software and they can do whatever they want. You can coach on these different aspects. And it's interesting. I mean, you can have this be very prim and proper. We have customers, particularly down kind of this area where they like the agent to be a bit looser and have a few jokes. Again, it's been an area where I thought there'd be a lot more trepidation, and then when teams actually see it go out, it's 95% of these calls are going to voicemail, and the impact there is it's a missed phone call. I should probably pay that thing. It's an extra touch point. But the engagement has actually been really interesting. Watching these, people actually don't mind it. Collectors have bad days too. You can have remove a bit of the bias, have a much more friendly tone on a not nice conversation often. So yeah, the voice piece gets interesting. We're thinking now, almost like a couple of years ago, you could buy ringtones. We're gonna put in like a Al Pacino voice for 90 days plus that you can start to build in. But it's, yeah, this is the bit that is on the very pushing edge when you have the voice aspect. But I'd say the vast majority of this is just an email agent communicating back and forth. Your customers have no idea. You're just processing a huge amount of information back and forth. Lovely. Thanks very much for the time. Hopefully gave you some ideas. Cheers.